Bring it back to the committee. My first question is, can you address the comments by the opposition?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, when a contractor enters into a contract with a public agency, it becomes a partner. When a problem or a change occurs, then the contractor becomes the financier of the project. 60 days after a negotiation has been made to make sure that 60 days that they have to issue a change order, then institutes the billing period and another probably in 90 days before they get paid, minimum. So we're looking to streamline this process to make sure that, the outlay of money on the contractor's part, unanticipated in the bid, is fairly taken care of, and making sure that the contractor who has the absolute opportunity to stop the project and say, we'll negotiate from this point forward for the bid. They become a part of the project when they initiate and say, yes, we'll work forward and do the work, but they have the opportunity to stop and negotiate. In public process, in any kind of project, that would devastate timelines and budgets. So making sure that we can acknowledge this willing partnership is to make sure that we honor not only the contract, but also their willingness to put forward their capital to be a successful project.
Anybody here from the opposition who would generally be considered as a representative of the opposition? CSAC folks? League of the County? Can you come up here? Mm-hmm. It's my understanding that the amendments that the author would be taking would essentially remove the opposition to this bill. Clearly, that has not been the case, so I'm going to ask you,
again,
do you have suggested amendments, or what exactly happened here?
Kiana Bess, on behalf of the California State Association of Counties, have been working closely with CSDA and other local public agency organizations. As I believe we tried to convey in our testimony, the amendments go a very long way in removing our most significant concerns. Perhaps what I failed to clarify is that we look forward to working with the author and sponsor to address both sides of, I think, remaining concerns as well. I'm not entirely sure that the amendments today make all of the sponsors and support happy too, so I think there's room on both sides to continue to finalize and make the bill a workable solution for everyone. So, are
you close to reaching an agreement here? You said significant. Are we looking at just at minor factors that separate the opposition from the author? I don't want to answer my question. I want to ask the opposition. Or is there significant issues here still waiting to be dealt with?
The most significant language, at least representing CSAC, and I believe others in the public agency, local public agency world, is the amendments talking about 60-day timeline starting after the work has been completed, and there has been agreement on merit, conditions, time, and cost. If that language were to change in some way in future editions, it could bring back our most significant concerns, but as that amendment goes forward from this committee, that addresses our most significant concerns.
And I would pull that bill back should it move out of here if that changes. But
Christina Lockie with California Special Districts Association. I want to echo Kiana's comments, and I'll also point out one additional issue that was raised in the committee analysis, and that's the writ of mandate language. We have offered perhaps an alternative dispute resolution process to the sponsors. My sense is I think we're close on maybe coming to an agreement on that, if that answers your question. And then there's just a few other what I would call technical or clarifying amendments, continuing that language about the agreement reached further down in the bill so that it's consistent with that first section, and just a few other very, very small changes that I think we would be able to come to an agreement on. I don't want to obviously speak for the
So
author.
you're
and
close, you
sponsor.
haven't come to agreement, we're running out of time, so I'm a little perplexed here. Why haven't we come to an agreement? I'll ask the author.
I'll share that with the sponsor of the bill has been negotiating the language.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Kevin Pedrati representing United Contractors. We've had robust discussions, and the amendments that were before you today were done pretty quick last week in recognition of today's hearing. I think that when they were done, we indicated to the committee that they weren't 100% to our acceptance, and have reached out to those that we've been in discussions with and have talked about and discussed and agreed to further discussions during the month of July while the Bills and Appropriations Committee.
Did you have something to add significant to this discussion, ma'am?
Only to note, Mr. Chairman, that from the transportation perspective, because of the magnitude of the types of projects that are done in the transportation arena, we do have unique concerns about it. Certainly our most significant concern is the 60-day requirement. That is far too short for an organization like OCTA and for projects that are in the hundreds of millions of dollars, if not over $1 billion. And secondly, the 7% interest rate is incredibly high, especially when you're considering those large dollar figures for transportation projects.
Mr. Chair, I do have a letter forthcoming from the Contra Costa Transportation Authority in full support of the change order bill, but also would like to remind the committee that in the bill it has a process for public agencies that puts in there that the next 60 days or the next board meeting coming forward. And so it isn't an absolute on 60 days. It does recognize public agencies and boards that have the opportunity that if it falls in between the time period.
What about the interest rate? I don't know if I can get 7% anywhere right now.
The 7% actually, that had been amended. It originally started at 10. That had been amended as a request by the opposition. It actually, as a contractor, costs me a lot more money than 7% on my credit line for the outlay of money. So we
Also
are
trying to
actually
protect the taxpayers as well here. That's why I'm trying to figure out here a solution. Otherwise, I'm going to hold the bill here.
Well,
I wasn't expecting to rewrite your bill here in committee, but again, I'm trying to get you there, sir. But
No, I
right now, I'm not inclined to let this bill out of this
and I'll let
committee.
the sponsor answer that.
If I could just respectfully remind the committee, what we're seeking to do here is get our contractors the undisputed amounts of money. So when the amounts are in dispute, this bill doesn't apply. It's only for undisputed amounts of money. It's only for money that the agency has acknowledged they owe the contractor. That's what we're seeking to get. So if they don't approve the change order within 60 days, all they have to do is pay out the undisputed amounts, and then it can continue on its normal
I understand
process.
that, but again, I'm interested in protecting the taxpayers as well. And so, again, I don't like to rewrite bills in committee, but either that or I'm going to hold the bill here today. So I'm going to ask all of you, how close are you to working out a deal? And I'm going to ask the author of the bill. One last time, where are we with this bill?
We're willing to move forward with discussion going forward
not
with
good enough
the
for me.
opportunity for the chair to call it back.
What are the major items still outstanding here?
If there is concern about some of the amendments taken in committee today, I think that's an outstanding item. We have to have a lengthier discussion to ensure that both parties
I'm going
are.
to be talking to you blue in the face. It's pretty late in the legislative process here. I want to hear specifics, not just that you're going to be talking at length.
The language that we asked that requires the 60-day timeline to start after work is complete and we've reached agreement on merit conditions, costs, and time is the most critical issue to my membership, CSAC. There are other local public agencies concerned, as Christina pointed out, with the interest rate and the writ of mandate. So I would say those are the three most critical issues before us today.
And just continuing that language on the agreement to the merit times and costs throughout the bill.
You have 3 issues, sir.
So I would ask our sponsor to weigh in on that because they're the ones that
You're
have-
the author.
I'm asking my sponsor right now to weigh in on those willingness to move it forward. Because it's their bill, it's their sponsorship.
You have 1 shot, ma'am. Go ahead.
So I just want to be clear, we're talking about the RIT, we're talking about maybe moving forward with ADR, and we're talking about lowering interest, the 7%.
And keeping the agreement language in there and moving it down throughout the bill.
We're willing to work, yes, we're willing to work on these issues. We think we can get there on these.
It's not good enough, folks. Willing to get there's not good enough.
Okay. We have,
I'm very uncomfortable being in this situation, but
I gotcha.
I have a choice of either moving the bill or not. And I'm not going to move a half-cooked bill right now.
I understand.
You want to have a sidebar, and I'm going to put back, sir. Will you get some of the opposition and the sponsors of the bill up here as well, please? Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. So I would like to first start, Mr. Chair, that we did take the committee's amendments in good faith, working forward, and are ready to move the bill forward if you see fit, sir.
No further amendments?
Jim Lights on behalf of the airports. Unfortunately, Mr. Chairman, we learned of the amendments when we got to the hearing this morning. They, in my view, are helpful, but I will not have an opportunity to obtain a sign-off from the airports until after this hearing is over.
Yes.
Christina Lucky with California Special District Association. I think we, as we stated earlier, from the local government standpoint, CSAC, some of the other organizations, we have been working with the authors and sponsors. We thank them for...
Okay, you addressed 3 areas of concern earlier.
Exactly, and we continue to have those concerns. But again, we are thankful for the work that the authors and sponsors have been doing. They have taken and addressed a lot of our concerns. But we continue to have those remaining issues.
So when you left to coming back, no progress. What seems to be the holdup here, folks?
We were not given an opportunity to have a conversation with them.
You want to have a conversation here then?
We can, I think in discussing it with our stakeholders, as a sponsor of the bill, we were under the impression that accepting these amendments would work for opposition, which is why we accepted these amendments.
And I hope that we have tried to clarify that we are representing a coalition of local public agencies and never purported to represent all of the opposition.
Okay, we're going to rewrite the bill in this committee, or do we not take a vote on it? Do we put it over? What are 3 areas of opposition again?
The most critical amendment accepted in the committee today from the CSAC and coalition perspective is that the 60-day time clock starts after the work is complete and there has been agreement on merit, conditions, time, and cost. If that were to change in future negotiations, that is our greatest source of concern moving forward, is that that language remain intact, or if we were to change it in any way, that it would be sufficient to satisfy our issues. I want to point out too.
Hold it.
Oh, okay.
That's part in the bill as amended, so that's not an issue.
Mr. Chair, it seems like the amendments haven't been studied real well.
Well, we're going to have to do that here, apparently. What's the next issue that the opposition has?
The writ of mandate issue. We have talked in a meeting a few weeks ago about pursuing other alternatives such as alternative dispute resolution. I think both parties can agree that we want to avoid litigation and dispute as much as possible and make this a prompt and efficient process for both contractors and public agencies. So that is the creation of a new legal remedy that we had concerns with. We did propose that amendment to the author, sponsors, and committee staff, but that one was not accepted today. Rather than remove writ of mandate, we wanted to have a conversation moving forward about alternative dispute resolution or other options.
Ma'am,
Yes, we're willing to have that conversation.
give me a solution right now.
I think it would be a negotiation. We are worried, and we're worried that if we do ADR instead of writ, that this bill loses its teeth and its intention, because ADR can drag it out as well. Although it's well-intentioned, and it's obviously our contractors' preference to stay out of courts, we want to make sure that this bill is able to do what it's intended to do. So we are willing to look at ADR and hopefully come to some resolution with that.
Why would you lose your teeth if you went to ADR?
Because I think, and Bob Rosen, our counsel on this bill, can speak specifically to that. And I'll just let you do that, actually.
For example, Caltrans, you have Public Works Arbitration Act arbitration. Some of those cases are 7 or 8 years old now. I know one that's, the work was done 10 years ago.
Was that done under arbitration?
That's under the Public Works Arbitration Act program, which is part of the Public Contract Code. So unfortunately, arbitration in ADR is
Hold
not...
on a second. Mediation versus arbitration here?
Certainly, there's no reason you couldn't have mediation as well as a writ of mandate, and that would satisfy both parties. But if you were to have binding ADR, there's no reason why, that would actually delay payment indefinitely, and that's one of our concerns in this case.
If I
Go ahead, ma'am.
can respond, I do believe that contractors already have the ability to take local agencies and other public agencies to court over issues with this. Government Code Section 900, I believe, provides that authority, and that contractors have used that legal remedy currently in law. So from our perspective, they already have that ability, and we are just looking for a way to provide an alternative to litigation.
So, counsel, you said if you go to mediation, everybody would be okay with this?
Mediation would be fine.
Yes,
But we would
going
need the
once,
writ
going
as well.
twice?
And we would ask that if we move to mediation to take the writ language out.
It's like,
Okay, we're back to where we started. We're being asked to hold the bill. Yes, ma'am.
Is there another hearing?
Nope, this is it.
This is the last hearing.
This is why I don't take pleasure in doing this, but I'm doing it to try to help the author here.
we would take a version of, let's look at ADR language, mediation language.
What about the writ?
In replacement of writ.
I didn't hear you.
In replacement of writ of mandate.
Are we okay with that? Okay. So we okay with the author on that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other? You said 3 issues. What's the last one?
So I believe the second to the last, because I think that there was another issue raised, is just some clarifying and technical amendments. For example, now that we have some new language in here about an agreement, complete agreement is reached concerning the merit in A1, we'd like that to continue down through 2A and B as well. And then I believe there's just a few other, just what I would again call technical.
So we had 3 outstanding issues. The first one was not an issue. It's already covered by the amendments taken by the author. What do you address the issue of mediation, except also by that's the one amendment the author is now accepting. The third one of clarifying language, I'll let you all folks deal with it between here and appropriations. We have a deal.
Was there the
Yes? Going once? You can't sign off for your folks until they look at the language, right?
Well, we are going to have a problem with the interest. On a $1 billion terminal project, we can have change orders worth tens of millions of dollars. And if an invoice isn't accurate and the work has been completed.
What interest rate would be good for you, sir?
A market rate.
Set by what? Which interest rate?
Yeah, PMI.
And Mr. Chairman, I apologize for this.
Excuse me for interrupting you. Yes, Ms. Galgiani.
So in the analysis, AB 748 is referenced, and that calls for a 7% interest rate.
And that's what the opposition is saying. And so the suggested amendment for the interest rate is, what's the suggested amendment? Interest, PMI?
PMI.
What do you think, Mr. Author?
I respectfully decline to take that amendment.
Mr. Cannella, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm perplexed because this is undisputed money. So the change order may be, let's say, $10 million, and the dispute may be with half of that, and so the contractor is forced to not get paid on work that's not disputed while the agency potentially drags their feet. So I'm perplexed why this is such a problem, because again, this is.
The problem is we're trying to protect taxpayers, and Ms. Torres pointed out sometimes you have a lot of change orders that
Well, no,
happen
but this
as well.
is undisputed. So if a change order is $10 million, they're talking about undisputed money, which may be, there's no question on it.
Ms. Torres?
The issue, putting on my local government hat, is that too often, we have contractors that low bid a project simply because they want the job. So at the end of the day, the local agency is having change order after change order after change order, not because the local agency has said, I want that door to the left instead of to the right. And in those cases, I don't believe that we should hold the local agency accountable for having to pay interest rates, or maybe they should have a second bite at the apple and going out and having to rebid and spend the money to rebid and get a contractor that can actually give them the right price for the right job. I think it's unfair that some contractors feel that they have been taken advantage of. I don't think that they should have to foot the bill for projects that have been approved, for change orders requested by the agency. I don't think that should be money that should be withheld. I don't think that's the case. It wasn't the case in my city when I was the mayor, when I was a city council member. The problems that we had were with contractors that too often low bid a job because they simply wanted the job.
Yeah, but Mr. Chairman, if I might just add to that, to what Senator Cannella was saying.
Let me, Mr. Vice Chair, interrupt you. We're down to one issue, interest rate. That's the issue right now. That's it.
Mr. Chair.
And you got your bill out of here.
Mr. Chair, and I would like to address Senator Torres's comments. The bill simply states for change orders. And the agency, the prime or the general is the one that issues the change order, not the contractor. So any work done is actually requested by the contractor as a change order. And also, any non-responsive bid who is lower than anything that seeks to be what would be misconstrued as somebody that's coming in for an extra would be considered a non-responsive bid and thrown out if it was that low.
In order to complete the job, you have to have a change order when a project is bid too low.
The jobs that are definitely, a lot of times we see change orders because the design criteria hasn't been done for the job, or they flat missed a component, or geological conditions. There's many issues that come up on a change order in public works, so transportation for one. And so the agency would be the one that says, orders the extra work, the change order, because of a change in the contract, a change in requirements for the contract. That's plain and simple. But as a contractor myself, being in this position, if I'm front loading the money for the labor and the material and all this, the 7% doesn't cover my expenses when I'm talking about years and years going into my credit line.
Yeah. Yes, Ms. Galgiani, go ahead. What else?
What would be helpful to me is if you could give some examples of some undisputed, and then some examples of some scenarios where undisputed amounts dragged on, to help me understand the difference.
I would let Bob give those examples. Our counsel.
Real briefly, you're digging in the ground and you discover that, lo and behold, there's a foundation for an old building that nobody knew about that was there. It's going to take a lot of money to take that foundation out. Everybody agrees that that's what's called a differing site condition. And under Public Contract Code 7104, the legislature has already said the contractor is entitled to a change order for that. So there's agreement that it's a differing condition. There's even an agreement on how much time and money it took to take it out. But for one reason or another, the agency does not issue the formal written document that amends the contract to add that work for months or sometimes even years. So keep in mind that what we're concerned about on interest is only on the undisputed amounts. If it's disputed, nobody's paying any interest, no one's having to pay any interest. So it's on this undisputed work. That's a kind of an example.
Yeah.
Hold on a second. Ms. Torres and then Mr. Canella.
On this great example, I'm really glad that you brought that forward, because I can show many other examples where the contractor should have known but failed to add it to the bid, where the three other contractors that bid the job put that fact that there was some underlayment, and that's why their bid was higher. In those cases, how would this bill impact and protect the agency?
In those cases, there would be no extra work, and therefore the contractor would be entitled to nothing and would not get any interest. And if it were done intentionally, the False Claims Act already addresses that situation.
Mr. Canella.
Yeah, I'm a licensed civil engineer, so I design projects. You're a contractor, you build them. And I will say most of the change orders that we run into as a firm are conditions that weren't expected. I mean, civil engineers are pretty amazing, but they can't foresee every issue. And most change orders really deal with a gas line that nobody knew about or a foundation that nobody knew about. And most of the contractors I work with, and I work with a lot of big contractors, they're reputable. I mean, otherwise their bids will get thrown out. They will not be the lowest responsive bidder if they continually lowball the bids. And again, and again, as the mayor of a small town as well, I dealt with contracts as well, so I have similar experience to others at this dais. Again, what we're talking, it's very simple. When things are going, and it's a lot, we're not talking about a $50,000 project. We're talking about a project of tens of millions of dollars. The contractor cannot stop. The best case scenario, the contractor would say, this is something we did not expect. We're stopping construction until we have a change order. Well, that would really mess up the whole schedule. So in good faith, they move forward. And now they submit a change order, and maybe 50% of it's undisputed. Well, the change order is held up for months and months and months by this contractor is trying to get a change order, and now the agency has all the power. This bill is very simple. It says if it's a $10 million change order and $5 million is undisputed, that part gets paid while the other part is argued. I mean, this is very fair. I think it's very reasonable as is, and it's unfortunate. Seems like we're down to one issue, the interest rate. If we could get some flexibility on that, I think we could wrap this up. So.
Mr. Chair, we can insert language that 7% interest on disputed amount only. Excuse me, undisputed. Can't read the right.
One brief comment, ma'am.
Thank you for your indulgence, Mr. Chair. Moira Top on behalf of OCTA. We still remain concerned about the 60-day requirement because when you've got all of these items working in conjunction, if you only have 60 days to deal with what's disputed, what's not disputed, and try and figure out the facts, then everything becomes disputed within those 60 days, and everything gets subject to the interest rate. And so we are very concerned.
You addressed this issue earlier.
And we do have in the bill that states if it becomes a part of the scheduling process, that the next board meeting would be the appropriate time to hear the change order with that bill. So it's not a 60-day mandate. It is the next board meeting also included in that language. But I also have a letter from the Contra Costa Transportation Authority that absolutely loves this bill.
Let me come back to the interest rate. Go ahead.
About the interest rate, we've acknowledged what we're willing to do.
And again, repeat that.
We can insert language 7% interest on undisputed amounts if it's not paid in a timely fashion.
I'm sorry, I'm looking at my members, not the witnesses here. Well, so what we have right now is author has accepted suggested amendments. You have ADR, not writ. Interest rate, as you've just stated. Those are essentially the amendments.
To clarify, it's I'm sorry.
And to clarify some technical language between here and appropriations.
That is correct.
Anything else?
Respectfully ask for your aye vote.
I'm prepared to move the bill when the chair is satisfied.
Is the committee ready to move the bill?
Yeah, I think the committee is ready to move the bill, Mr. Chairman, with the amendments.
Thank you, members, for your indulgence. I have a motion. Madam Secretary, call the roll.
Motion is due pass as amended and re-refer to appropriations. Correa?
Aye.
Correa, aye. Berryhill? Berryhill, aye. Canella?
Aye.
Canella, aye. De Leon? Galgiani?
Aye.
Galgiani, aye. Hernandez? Liu? Aye. Liu, aye. Padilla? Torres? Aye. Torres, aye. Vidak? Aye. Vidak, aye. 7.
Sir, I hope I'm asking you to please bring back the language that we discussed the next couple of days.
We'll handle it. Yeah.
We're going to do it right now for you.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you,
and
sir.
I reserve the right to call the bill back.
Always a pleasure.
It's been an honor, sir.